Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We are excited to share some information with you. On the screen here, you'll see myself, Ashley, Dan Clark, our director, and Skylar Gurman, our program manager. The three of us are going to try to host this for you here this morning. If you have any issues, technical issues, reach out to Skylar or myself. We're going to have Dan running the slides, so we'll try to stay out of his chat as much as we can. If you've never attended a webinar with us before, you'll get very much a back and forth. We like to interrupt each other and talk over each other and all those things. So let's go ahead and get started. We're planning on about an hour. We will run through some slides, some things that we think are important to you. But what we would like to know before we begin is in the chat, if you can share your most pressing questions about the voter review process or being a study commissioner. We want to make sure we touch on all the things that are important to you this morning. All right, I think that's the housekeeping. Dan, you ready?
I'm ready. I don't see any way I'm set up. I'm not seeing any of the chat, so you'll have to keep me up on that.
Okay.
So good morning. Happy 24th of July, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Looking forward to this for several weeks now. And you are here participating in this likely because you have either filed to be a study commissioner in your local jurisdiction, or you're a study commissioner curious. You're wondering, is this something I want to do? So we've developed this presentation today to help you if you've made the commitment and you've filed with the election administrator in your county to be a study commissioner. Welcome. Thank you for your willingness to serve as an elected official. And just know that the local government center is here to help study commissioners through this process. If you are a study commissioner curious and wondering what this is all about, we're hopefully going to be able to provide you some context, some explanation of what this, the local government review or voter review is, so that you'll have a more informed understanding as you decide whether you want to file or not. So this session will be recorded. We'll post it on our website for people that cannot participate or attend this live session. They can then access it later on. So if you've got people in your community or others that you're twisting their arm to join but couldn't be here today, you can share them the link to this webinar. I think we'll probably have it up by late this afternoon, maybe tomorrow sometime, Ashley?
Yeah, that usually is a pretty quick rendering process.
So thanks for joining. So here I've got a few slides. Ashley asked you if you've got questions. Hopefully, that's great. Hopefully some of the slides will cover some of your questions. And then as we kind of wrap up the slides, whatever's left over, we'll try to address those questions. And if someone's bold enough to even unmute and ask a question, that's fine as well. And as I go through this, either raise your hand if there's something I'm saying that's like, yeah, that didn't make sense. Ashley will be watching and she'll indicate it's like, slow down, Dan, or let's back up, or let's clarify something.
Dan, real quick, I don't know that they have access to do audio the way that this one's set up, so it might be chat only. But I will be watching the chat closely, so we'll make sure we get those all covered. And we have some great questions already. I'm just going to throw them out so you know what they're asking.
Okay, great.
What sort of background would be ideal for a study commissioner to have? I'm curious about the time commitment because we do still have to work to pay the bills. You're not wrong. How are study commissioners chosen? Looking for an overview of process and expected timelines. Learning what to do, when and how. Glad this is available for later. And what Justin asked, and is the state involved in the process? Okay. So that's where, oh wait, one more, hold on. How much about the process can study commission decide for itself as opposed to the city or county commission? These are great questions. Oh. So we'll run back through these after we get through the slides and make sure we've touched on them, but we should be addressing most of those.
Yeah, I think a lot of that I'll try to fold some of that in. Ooh, exciting. All right. you've never seen bigger nerds than us that get really excited about this stuff. So, so the voter review, this is something that is unique to Montana. I'm not aware of any other state that has this constitutional mandate. This is a result of our 1972 Constitution, where the delegates not only placed in the Constitution a review or an opportunity for the voters of Montana every 20 years to review the Constitution, right? We all vote every 20 years whether we want to have another constitutional convention or not. So far, we have not voted, consented to that in our vote. But every 10 years, we ask the voters in each of the cities and each of the counties whether they want to do a local government review or a voter review. I use those, they're the same thing. I use those two terms interchangeably, so I may reference it as voter review sometimes, and I might reference it as a local government review. So this is part of our Constitution. So we are now embarking on our 6th decennial, I think I said that right, voter review. Happens every 10 years. When the voters in your jurisdiction voted to do this, they voted to raise taxes so that they can, I'm gonna have to find that, raise taxes to fund a local government review. And so that's going to help fund your study activities. And so there is a allocation that whatever your voters approved is the allocation that you'll need to work with to finance and fund the study. So we'll get more into that and unpack that later on too. So let's see, where am I? Why is it not moving? There we go. So who's in, who's out? So this is the list of those municipalities and counties that will be participating in the local government review this 6th round. So hopefully you will see your municipality or your county on that list. Now, if you are in a county and your county is being studied, you can only file to serve as a study commissioner in your county. If you live in a municipality that is the county is the only thing being studied, you can file to be a study commissioner. So if you live in the county, either as a city resident or as a county resident, you can file to be a study commissioner. Now, okay, so that's county. Doesn't matter what your jurisdiction is. If you live within that county and it's being studied, you can file to be a study commissioner. Now it gets complicated if you are in a municipality that is being studied and that municipality is inside of a county being studied. That gives, like, we'll say Gallatin County and Bozeman, or Gallatin County and West Yellowstone. Both of those municipalities are participating in the local government review. Madison County and any one of the municipalities other than Twin Bridges in Madison County. So those folks that live in those municipalities can choose to either be a study commissioner in that city or town, or a study commissioner in the county. But you can't file for both. You've got to choose one or the other. So, so you've got options. If both your municipality and county are participating, you can choose which one you want to engage in. So hopefully that made sense. If not, type a question for clarification in the chat and Ashley will let me know. Here's the map of the different jurisdictions. Again, the gold, or I guess yellow, counties are participating, and then you got the blue dots of the municipalities. We'll let you know, as we've mentioned earlier, the local government center, this is really our jam. This is what we do. We work with local governments, and this is like Christmas for us, that this 10-year review, it happens where we get this opportunity for communities to basically control, alt, delete. Let's evaluate where are we at with our structure form of government. What are all the alternatives? And is there something that could be better? We'll talk more about that process. So our commitment is, how do we support you in this study? So what we're going to do is we're going to host live in-person trainings in various regions around the state in December. So after all of the study commissioners have been elected or appointed, and we'll talk about that process. So mid-December, we'll have a training in Billings area to get these folks. Sydney, we're going to host it in Sydney to get this cluster up here in the northeast corner. Shelby, because we've got 3 here on this side of the mountains. Then the other side of the mountains, we'll do it in probably Kalispell and try to draw upon this group here. And then in Bozeman, we'll host this group here. So Darby, you can decide whether you go north or whether you go west. I'm sorry, east. So we'll do 5 of these locations. There are the dates. So you might want to block those calendars to participate in that. So the 5th, Ashley will do Kalispell, I'll do Sydney, Billings, I'll do, and then we'll both do the Bozeman site. And we'll both do Shelby. So it'll be a day-long session. We'll probably start around 10 because it's December. We're gonna give people a chance to travel there. We'll try to be done by 5. And so it'll just come prepared to have an intensive drink from the fire hose, figure that out. We'll give you a lot of resources to support you through that. So what is this local government review? If I were to be elected as a study commissioner, what am I expected to do? And so your role is to look at your current local government's power, form, and plan of government. What powers do they have? What are the alternatives? What form do they operate with? What are the alternatives? And what plan do they have within that form? Or what plan do they use in that form so that they operate, how are they operating? You're going to evaluate that, look at alternative forms, and try to figure out, can we make our local government more responsive, more effective, more efficient if we were to change or adopt some alternative? And so as you make that study, you're engaging citizens, you're engaging the existing local government, saying, hey, what's working? What's not working? If we were to do something different, what do you think would happen? You're engaging citizens and getting what their experience is. If we were to do this, would that improve upon our representation, our meaningful governance, how we make decisions as a community? So all of that, you're kind of engaging both citizens and the local government, facilitating a conversation about what could we be, given the structure and framework we have to operate in. And then at the end, you will put forward a proposed alternative to the existing form of government. And so at some point, you'll place on the ballot for the voters to decide, do you want to adopt the alternative form of government the study commission is putting before you, or retain your existing form of government? And at the end of the day, the voters of your municipality or your county will make that decision, whether they're going to adopt the alternative or stay with the existing. You do not need to get any sort of endorsement or permission or the thumbs up from the governing body or the existing, the local government. This is independent of their interests and what they want. This is something that you are facilitating, hearing what they have to say, hearing what the community and the public says, and then putting forward the final decision to the voters. So that doesn't mean that they won't campaign against it, but you don't need their endorsement or their sign off or, yes, we agree with this. They can do it, but you don't need it. All right, so I've mentioned, right, we've got power, form, and plan. So we're going to briefly review what is power, form, and plan. So we've got 2 options for powers: general governing powers or self-governing powers. The general governing powers is the statutory default. Everybody in 1974, when they started the very first local government review, their default was general governing powers. And at that point, and at subsequent points throughout time, there's been an opportunity for municipalities and counties to propose the alternative. Do we want to adopt self-governing powers or not? Are we happy with the general governing powers, the statutory framework that's provided to us by the legislature, or do we want to adopt the self-governing powers? So that's the very first, I would think, the first decision point. What's our current form of government? What's the alternative? And do we want to entertain the idea of adopting the alternative? So for example, and we'll share with you in a minute who is self and who is general. But say, for example, our community is self-governing powers. Have the conversation. Do we want to change back to general governing powers? Is there a need for us to retain our self-governing powers? There may be things that you have adopted in your community that you would lose if you were to go back to general governing powers. We'll talk more about that in a minute. So it's a little cliffhanger for you. So this is how we look at self-governing powers, right? General governing powers basically says you can only exercise the power and authority that's given to you by the legislature through the Montana Code Annotated, right? The state law. So if the state law doesn't give you a specific power or authority to do something, the assumption is you cannot do it. Now, conversely, self-governing powers is you can exercise any power that's not specifically prohibited by the legislature. So if it doesn't specifically say you cannot exercise this power in the law, it doesn't specifically say that, the assumption is that you can step into that space and exercise that power. So looking at this slide, right? So we have the general governing powers, that's indicated in the green. So that's only those municipalities or counties that have general governing powers can operate within that sphere or that oval. That's the powers they have. Now, if you were to adopt self-governing powers, you can exercise those same powers, those general governing powers, as well as any other power that has a local government purpose and function, except for those powers that are specifically denied to you by the legislature. And there's a list of about 25 or 26 denied powers, and there's a list. So there are specific things you cannot step into or wander into that space. But outside of that, if there's a need that you have in your municipality or county that the legislature has not contemplated, giving you or local governments that power, you can exercise the power to address that concern or issue in your community. Oh, look at that, more little things. Yeah, so self-governing powers, folks, they can exercise general governing powers and any additional powers that has a specific governmental purpose or function.
Dan, can you just give a quick example of what might be in the gray?
So in the gray, the one that's, so let's look at the fees. What are the fees?
The development fees?
Yeah.
Impact fees.
Impact fees. So we'll just use impact fees as an example. There's lots of them. So impact fees, there was municipalities that had self-governing powers that were fast growing, that were challenged with all this growth, and they couldn't keep up financially with the growth that was being, and get their infrastructure up to speed with the growth that they're experiencing. So they implemented impact fees. It's not a power. Historically, or in the past, it was not a power that was in the general governing powers area, that the legislature didn't give general governing powers communities, cities or counties, the authority to enact impact fees. But those that had self-governing powers said, hey, there's a need we have. This is a way in which we can generate revenue to keep up with the infrastructure, improve roads, put in street lights, expand our water system, put in water lines, all that stuff. So they implemented impact fees. And with such great success, the legislature came back and said, hey, that works. So why don't we take that as a model and we'll then incorporate that into general governing powers communities. So now everybody in the state can implement impact fees because it made sense and it had a statewide application. So in that case, the leadership for local government solving problems came from the local government. And then the legislature said, this makes sense for a statewide impact, and so we'll implement that statewide. It's the same model with the smoking, the clean air. There's a clean air ordinance in Helena, and then they had self-governing powers. They were able to do that. It was not a power that was given to general governing powers communities. Once that passed, then other communities that had self-governing powers started implementing their own version of a Clean Air Act. And then it got to a point where all the bars, taverns, and casinos are saying, hey, look, every jurisdiction, there's a different rule. So the state stepped in and said, hey, why don't we make something that's for everybody across the state? So they adopted the Montana Clean Air Act that applies across the state. So there's consistency in the application of that law. So that's not jurisdiction by jurisdiction. But the point being is that that was a need that was expressed in a self-governing powers community. They stepped into that gray space and said, hey, it's not denied. So why don't we implement a power or an ordinance that will help our health and safety of our citizens by implementing the Clean Air Act. So those are a couple examples. I hope that that gives you an idea of what's out in this gray space. And then how the leadership comes from the local government, and then the legislature says, hey, that makes sense. Let's apply it across the board. So you're almost like little incubators experimenting with different aspects of governing. And then the legislature will take note and say, okay, now we've tried it, we've worked out the kinks, now let's do it, apply it statewide. All right, so that's powers. Back to our slide here, right? We had powers, self and general. Let's talk about the forms of government. Woo, there we go. There are 6 different forms of government for local government. This is applicable to cities and counties. Counties can adopt any one of these forms except for the town meeting one. They can't do that. But counties can do any of the other 5, and cities can do any of the other, all the 6. So what this is basically doing is it's describing the different legislative and executive roles and functions. So we have the commission, which is going to be the legislative body. And in the case of, it's going to be like the city council or the county commission is the legislative body that creates the policies and the laws that govern that jurisdiction. And then the other one is the executive branch, right? So think legislature, governor, council, mayor, Congress, president. We have that model we use in the United States. And so the commission is the governing body, and then what is the executive? So in this case, the commission executive or the commission council or the council mayor form, where we have an elected city council and an elected mayor. Most of you operate within that framework. Then we have the commission manager, where we have an elected commission, legislative body, and they appoint based on merit the manager, who acts as the chief executive, who then implements and executes those policies and ordinances and goals set by the commission. The commission form of government, which is the most common form of government in counties, is where they have an elected commission. And that elected commission acts as both the legislative governing body that creates the policies and ordinances, and that commission serves as the executive branch who is responsible for implementing and executing those policies. So it's the executive legislative branch. How do I want to do this? So you see it rolled into one governing body. So like I said, that's the most common in Montana. I travel around the state a lot and work with other states, and I'll tell you that is not common in other states. They usually have the commission manager form in other states, but that's how we roll in Montana. The commission presiding officer. So if anyone here from Virginia City, that is their form of government where they have an elected commission. And then that commission elects one of its members to be the presiding officer. So coming from that pool of elected city council members, they elect one of their members to be the presiding officer or the mayor. And they serve at the pleasure of the county or the city commission. Right? These are options for cities and counties. Town meeting is only an option for municipalities that have a population less than 2,000. And this is direct democracy. This is where the electorate, those registered voters in that municipality, are the legislative body. They have to meet at least once a year, adopt a budget, adopt any policies and any ordinances. They can meet more frequently if they choose. But the citizens are the governing body, and they have one vote in making decisions about how their community operates and functions. They elect a chief executive who then does the day-to-day operations and is responsible for hiring and managing and executing the wishes of the citizenry. So rather than doing representative government, which would be an indication of all these other forms, this is direct democracy. We only have one in the state that operates that way, and that's the community of Pinesdale, and that's over in the Bitterroot Valley. And the last one is the charter form of government. And the charter is like a local constitution, and it's a framework that you will develop that defines for your community what is the executive branch, what's its purpose, function, its roles, responsibilities, What's the purpose, function, role, responsibility of the legislative branch? How is each of those branches elected? Partisan, nonpartisan? Is it how do we elect them? By wards, at large? What else do we want to cover in there? What's their term of office? Is it 2 years, 4 years, 6 years? So all of that is written out and defined in your charter. And usually what a charter will do is it will adopt one of these other frameworks as a framework in their charter. So a lot of the folks on the line here that are participating, or the communities participating, that have charters, have adopted either the commission manager form, and they have incorporated that into their charter, or the commission executive or council mayor form of government and have incorporated that into their charter. So we already have a proven framework that we've been operating with historically. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take that same framework and we're going to include it in our charter. And there may be some other things that you might want to include in that charter that may not be scripted in the statutory framework that's included there. So it just gives you a little bit more flexibility to add or do things within your charter. For example, not recommended, clearly not recommended, but here is an example. The city of Billings placed in their charter in 1994 or 74, their very first voter review, they adopted self-governing powers in a charter. They adopted the commission manager form of government, and they put a cap on how many mills the city could levy. Well, what do you think? Has anything changed in Billings since 1974? So every time they needed to increase their mills to address public safety, to increase their fire department, to increase their police department, because the value of their mills did not keep up with the needs that they had. So they had to go and change their charter by a vote of the people, which they have to do now anyway, but at the time that was not required. A vote of the people to change the charter to increase their mills. Now, instead of operating with 76 mills, is which they put in there back in 1974, or voted for in 1976. Now I think they're up to 167 mills. But each one of those increase in mills were approved by the voters as they've increased that cap. So it's kind of a cumbersome way. You could do it, not recommended, because now at the, well, let me say at the time in 1976, we didn't have what's referred to as 1510-420, where there's a cap on the number of mills. Came from the initiative I-105 in 1988. So it was a negotiated agreement with the citizens of Billings saying, hey, look, we'll give you the charter, we'll give you this flexibility, but we also want to make sure that you're not going to go hog wild and just go crazy with the taxation. We want to put a limit on that. And so that's what they did in Billings. And then since that time in the late 80s, I-105 was approved by the voters. Now we have a cap on what local governments can do, and the voters have to vote it anyway. So it's become a redundant thing in their charter. Anyway, more about Billings than you probably ever wanted to know. So that's the form. Now the plan is the third thing you're looking at, right? So the plan is how does our form function? So term of office. Are we going to elect our people for 2 years, 4 years, 6 years? So we've got some counties out there that they have 3 county commissioners that are elected to 4-year terms. That creates a problem because at any given or every couple of years, you're going to have 2 county commissioners being elected at the same time. And you only have one incumbent that's sitting there in that office, that they're the keeper of all the knowledge of that county. And they may have only been there for 2 years, and they get 2 new people in. And so for continuity's sake, a lot of those counties are like, oh, this isn't working for us very well. Having that 4-year terms, although it makes them more responsive to us, it creates some other logistical problems. Now, right, you balance that out. And as a study commissioner, you might say, hey, we recognize there's a downside to having 4-year terms, but we also recognize there's an upside to having 4-year terms. And so you figure out what is the upside downside, and you can talk with your voters about that. And in some of those jurisdictions that adopted 4-year terms, the public said, you know what, let's try it. Let's try this experiment. Let's see how it works. We'll give these folks 4-year terms and see if that doesn't, the benefits that we're getting from county commissioners serving 4-year terms outweighs whatever administrative problems and challenges and ineffectiveness that the county might have. right? So there's no silver bullet. And a lot of this is an experiment. So you're going to try. The city of Bozeman right now has elections at large, right? So it's been decades since they had elections by wards. So maybe it's not working for us. Maybe we don't feel like we're getting full representation across the entire spectrum of our community as it grows. So what if we were to force representation by creating wards in our city that people can move up? That's certainly, there's pros and cons to both of those arguments. So let's have the discussion. Let's debate that in the public forum. And then the study commission then decides, you know what, we're feeling that the public is in support of and the benefits of adopting this alternative is greater than keeping the existing. So we're going to put that item on the ballot for our voters to decide. So that's really what you're doing as study commissioners, is really looking at what is our existing powers, what's our form of government, and what's our plan of government. And is there any change, any tweak, any twist that any of these things would make things better? Some communities, fast-growing communities, I'm thinking, oh gosh, where am I thinking? Hamilton, well, or Havre. They're pretty big. Miles City, they're fairly large, complex communities. And as of today, they're still operating with the commission executive form of government. So they're electing their county or their city council, and they're electing their mayor. And it may be getting to a point where, you know what, the skills and competence of our elected mayor may outstrip those in our community that are willing to serve in that position. Maybe it's time for us to consider the commission manager form, where we can hire someone with the knowledge, skill, and experience to manage our municipality at the level of complexity that we're at. And maybe that might be a benefit. Polson did this it's coming on 20 years now. So Polson adopted, they went from the commission executive to the commission manager because they're realizing, you know, things are changing. And it took them a few tries of different managers to find the right fit. And they found stability now. They're doing quite well with the commission manager form. Now it's up for election. Now they might say, you know what, we want to go back. Well, let's have that debate and either reinforce that the commission manager form of government is really where we should be, or maybe we want to go back to the commission executive form and have an elected mayor. Pros and cons on each side. And I think it's great to have this discussion and a debate and try to weigh out and allow then the electorate to make the final decision at the end of the day. So as a study commission, you're not deciding what it's going to be. You're just deciding what we're going to put as an alternative to the existing. Or you may go through the whole study and say, you know what? I don't see how we can improve upon things by changing either our form or our plan of government. So we are proposing no change, no alternative. And so nothing goes on the ballot. You write a report saying, this is what we did, this is what we studied, this is what we evaluated. These are our conclusions. And we don't feel like there's anything here that really warrants making a change of this structure.
Dan?
Yes.
We have about 20 minutes left.
And I'm running out of time. Thank you.
We have lots of questions about the study commission itself, but before we move on to that, I just real quick, because we're talking about this, a question about how many proposals from the study commission go to the voters, and it changes each cycle. But last time there were so we had 51 jurisdictions elect to do the review. 6 of them ended up dissolving before the process was over. 14 placed something on the ballot, and 5 adopted that proposed change.
And historically, that's a pretty low both participation level and putting things on the ballot.
Yeah.
So it could be that over time, we've kind of found homeostasis. What do you got? You know, an equilibrium.
Yeah.
An equilibrium, to where, you know, we let's have the review. It's good to check in and say, is it still working or not? One of the other things that you can do as a study commission is there may be things through this, as you go through the study, that you recognize that isn't part of the power, form, or plan, but you say, you know, I see there's a need that maybe the county and the city could get together on an interlocal agreement to do something together. Or maybe we'll propose, instead of having a city planning board and a county planning board, maybe that made sense 20 years ago when they split. Maybe it doesn't make sense now. So it may not be something that goes on the ballot, but you could make a recommendation to the jurisdiction that we recommend that the city and the county pursue a consolidation of the planning board. So there's things like that that aren't part of the governance, that doesn't go on the ballot, but it's a recommendation that you can provide to the governing body. Yeah,
I think that's an important point to note and reiterate. The questions that go on the ballot as part of the voter review process, the powers, the form, and the plan of government, that governance structure can only be changed by a vote of the people. So the governing body, the city council, can't move from commission executive to commission manager by ordinance. It can only be done by a vote of the citizens. This process is one of 3 potential ways to put that question on the ballot. So it's an important inflection and reflection point, because it's somewhat of a limited opportunity to have that question of the people, but it can't be changed any other way. So a local government can't just do it whenever they want.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to talk about study commissioner people. Whew.
Okay, is this good here? Here's
Yeah.
here's the self-governing community. So if your municipality, oh, I didn't put the counties on here. No, there we are. Anaconda, Butte, Silverbow. So these folks have self-governing powers and charters. So as a study commission, if you're living in this community, what your starting point is going to be, all right, Ennis, what does our charter say? And is there language in there that's inhibiting or creating a friction point? Is there clarity we need to create in there? Is there things that have happened in our community since we adopted that, which I think you adopted your charter like in 1976? You know, maybe we want to look at some things and restructure it. So that, I think that's the important thing for you. That would be your starting point, is look at your existing charter. And we got Virginia City down here. They have self-governing powers, but not a charter. They still operate with the statutory framework of the commission presiding officer that's spelled out in the law, but they have self-governing powers, which is an option.
And that's just those who have elected to do the study commission, right? We have more that have self-governing, but they're not a part of this process.
So this gives you the full list of those people that are in, that have charters or self-governing powers.
So those that are in blue have a charter form of government,
Yep.
but say Bozeman, for example, has a commission manager structure. So they've adopted that framework of commission manager by and large, but operate under a charter form.
So like Butte, Silverbow, Anaconda, Deer Lodge, they elect a commission, and then they elect the chief executive or the mayor. They just call it a chief executive. And that person is accountable to the public with a vote. Whereas the managers are accountable to the city council. That is their boss. Those 4 members, 5 members, however big your commission is, that is the manager's supervisor, so to speak, by contract. All right, timeline. Here we are in this space here, where we're filing for, where we are over here. We're filing for office. So you've got to get, if you're study commissioner curious, you've got till August 12th to get your paperwork in. After that, you have to file as a write-in candidate. And that ends on September 3rd. If you're not filed as a write-in or filed as a candidate, then you're out. Now, to be clear, if you're in a municipality that we have, say we elected to have 5 study commissioners and only 3 people have filed, you have 2 positions then that can be appointed by the governing body. If no one files, the governing body has to appoint people to serve in that position. If you have 8 people file for 5 positions, the top 5 vote getters get the office. The 3 that got the least votes don't get the office. So it's ranked voting. It's found both. Now, here's the other thing to be clear. You are a governing body. You are a subdivision of government in the state of Montana. Laws and constitution apply to you. You have to follow all the same laws, open meeting laws, citizen participation laws, code of ethics, public records, records retention, all those things apply to you. So as you're thinking about that, right? So of those funds that you have, you could also hire someone to be part-time, or if you're a small jurisdiction, or full-time if you're a larger jurisdiction, somebody to be, what do we say, administrative support for you. So that's thing to think about when you're looking at your budget. So someone that can notice your meetings, take minutes at your meetings, publish those minutes, retain the records, ensure the agendas are distributed, ensure the packets are distributed, and maintain the website. All that stuff could be done by an administrative person that you use those funds to hire to do that work.
Can I add in here, because this was one of our questions, is the municipality responsible for public notification that they passed, and this is an opportunity? If so, how do they legally notify? So I think two different things. We'll talk about publishing or notice for the election for the study commissioners, but I would say if you are serving as a study commissioner, one of your very first action items would be to talk to your local government or your ex officio liaison, find out what those rules are locally, because they've already figured out how to comply with all the state laws. You don't need to reinvent the wheel separate from them. You can utilize that existing infrastructure. And like Dan said, you do have the potential to hire somebody if you've got the funds to help with that, but you can't do that just by yourself. You have to work with that local government and get everything approved proper, all the things that you have to do. So just make sure that you have a really good working relationship with the professional staff in your local government to do everything to comply with these laws.
Yeah. Makeup of the study commission, be a voter in the jurisdiction. You have to develop a budget. Go ahead.
Couple questions on that. One, somebody asked, can they be compensated? And we know the answer is no to that. You can be reimbursed for actual expenses incurred, but that, again, there's a local process, so make sure you know what that is before you start spending money. And then another question that came up was about eligibility. So let's say you're in Madison County. So Madison County's doing it, Ennis is doing it, but you live in McAllister. So in that case, Dan, which one would you be qualified to register for?
You would only be eligible to run as a county on the county study commission if you live in McAllister.
Okay.
But if you live in Ennis, you could run either to be this Ennis study commissioner, or you could run to be the Madison County study commissioner, but you can't file for both. You got to pick one or the other.
Okay. And we know that elected officials of the body that's being studied, the government that's being studied, are not eligible. So if you're a city council member in Ennis, you are eligible to run for the Madison County one. Could get very confusing because you still may have to give up one seat because of holding two offices. It can get tricky. But what about professional staff that are employed by that entity?
So the law does not exclude staff. I think I've got a slide on that. We'll come back to that. Maybe I don't. So anyway, it doesn't exclude staff. It specifically says the elected officials of that governing body can't serve. But it doesn't say anything about the staff. So
one of the questions, follow-up questions was, doesn't that have the potential to skew the study?
Sure. But that's the voters will decide. So yeah. So yep. So it's not excluded. So yeah, I think it's just baked into the way that the thing is defined. That's what works. Now, yeah, I would seek legal counsel from the county attorney or the city attorney if you are an elected official wanting to run in a different jurisdiction. So if, say, you're at city council in Ennis, you want to be on this county study commission. That's not excluded in the law specifically here because you're not an elected official in that jurisdiction being studied. However, there may be another law that applies, which is called incompatible office, where you're holding two elected offices at the same time. There's been some recent legislation on that, so I would seek competent legal counsel to help you navigate that if that's something you want to do. What do we got here? Organization. After the 10 days after the election certified, is the governing, the presiding officer of the governing body. So in the case of your municipality, it'd be the mayor. would call the first meeting. So they have the authority to call that first meeting just to assemble you, because none of you have any authority at that point. You've just been appointed. So they call the first meeting, then you organize yourselves and decide who is going to be your presiding officer of your study commission. And that that presiding officer then is the one that calls future meetings. But part of this is you're going to create a budget and a calendar. So that could be the other thing that you do that first meeting or the first few meetings is you create a calendar. What are we going to do and when are we going to do it? So you frame it out and say, well, we want to do this by this day. We want to do this by this day. We're going to meet every second and or first and third Thursday of the month, or every second Wednesday of the month. You decide how much you want to do. And if you're in a community that's like, yeah, we need a lot of work, you may want to spend more time, particularly at the beginning, as you're doing that exploration and vetting, and then it might taper towards the end. I'll just also warn you that it's really exciting. You'll get all ramped up and you'll do a whole bunch of work, and you see it takes a while before you get your head wrapped around it, but then don't run out of steam. We've had a lot of jurisdictions the last go around just ran out of steam, and they had, look, we want to propose this charter. We think it's going to make a big difference in our community. We just don't have the energy left to be able to share it with the public, to be able to help them understand, to go on the journey that we've gone on, to help us get to the point where we think a charter is preferable to our existing form of government. It's a long journey to get there. It's an exciting journey, but we just don't have the energy to be able to share that journey with our community. And that's a travesty to have that. They just said no change, and they walk away from it. So we're hoping to help you to manage your time, to make sure the good ideas come out of this, and appropriate changes will be adopted by the electorate. Okay, let's jump here. This is important to us. You can hire consultants, you can hire people to support you and help you through this. So I'll let you read what it says here, but we are there, but we don't work for free. That's one of the deals that the legislature made with us. They give us a little bit of money and say, look, let the local governments make up the difference of your budget. So we are a fee for service agency, part of the university. So the work that we do, a few of our positions are supported by some state dollars, but the rest of our operations and other staff are supported through fees. So knowing that, we're going to set up a framework for you to kind of choose a level of support that you want from us. We're working on that, and those, I think we'll have that discussion at the December meeting saying, you can buy package A, B, or C, and this is the service you can get from us. And if you want something outside of those packages, there'll be an additional fee for that.
And just a note on that. So what we're trying to package right now is some combination of, we will have an online course that would be available for all study commissioners, and it would include a resource hub, including all of the templates that we have, timelines, all of the documents that you may need. We'll have samples of those in there. It also will likely, or some of the packages will include a number of technical assistance calls between the study commission and our office. And some of them will also include a site visit for community education and that kind of work. So we're going to do tiers based on what you need. And then, like Dan said, if it's even more than that, we're happy to do custom conversations with people.
So looking through the list of questions we had at the very beginning, I'll just touch on a few of these. The state being involved, as far as we know, whenever anyone asks the state a question about the local government review, they'll refer you to us.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Secretary of State's office, Department of Commerce, Department of Administration. So they're not very much involved. So I think we're the game in town. So if our style annoys you, sorry. That's what you're going to get for the next 2 years. So time commitments, I think we covered kind of time. You define the time process. We've talked a little bit about the relationship between the study commission and the governing body and the government being studied. We strongly encourage good, strong relationship between the two. Go ahead, Ashley.
I was just say bare minimum, you have to understand your local government's current structure and plan. You need to know what you're working with as a starting point. You have to hold hearings, at least one hearing with the public, some kind of listening session to hear what your community's concerns are and if this is a tool that can help address them. You have to write the report at the end, whether you have a proposal or not. If you do decide to propose an alternative, you would also have to include a transition plan, especially if it's moving from one form to the other, creating or eliminating offices, those kind of things. You have to have a budget that's approved by the local government based on how much was levied or appropriated out of the general fund. Couple did that. So there's some key things that you must do, but there's no specific expected amount of time. You could spend as little as 40 hours over the 2 years, or you could spend as much as, once a week for doing something. Really what works for your community.
I'll tell you this, study commissioners this is a gateway drug.
Yeah.
A lot of study commissioners go on to be then study county commissioners or city councils or mayors. They go on to run for statewide office. So this is, once you get into this, it's like, this is super cool. And I would love to see more legislators be former study commissioners, because it means that you understand governance and the governing process and understanding lanes and roles and responsibilities and how this is an elegant thing. The way this is structured is very elegant. That's why we say, you can create a charter that gets things really out of whack and it is not elegant. It becomes a nightmare. So there's a really elegance to this. And I think there's a nuance, and it's a beautiful thing to see when it runs well and it's well thought out and well structured. That's what we like to see. I just want to focus on this real quick. This is what it's not. If you want to get in there and say, yep, I'm going to tell that mayor a thing or two, or I'm going to overturn that growth policy, or I'm going to fix the electoral process in Montana through the study commission, you'll be wildly disappointed. So it's not any of those things. You're not going to change land use. It's very much about that structured government. So once you understand that, if that's interesting to you, then you're in the right space. If it's not interesting to you, then you need to seek some other elected office that does have discretion over those other areas of interest.
Perfect.
So really quickly here's like in the decision space for a county, you can recommend amendments to the existing plan of government, recommend any plan of government authorized in 731, whatever. Like that was that list, right, that we had there. Draft a charter. Now, the thing is with counties, there's no option to just disincorporate. So you can either merge or you can consolidate a city county government, but you can't just say we're going to just not exist anymore. If you are interested in consolidation or merging, consolidation with another municipality or merging with another county, that gets pretty complicated. Not discouraging you from doing it, but if that's on the table, you need to jump on that early, because it's going to take every bit of the time you got available for you to navigate that process.
So Dan, that was one of our questions. You did some preaching the good local government review word up in the northeastern part of the state, and we saw a whole bunch of the communities up there elect to do it. And one of their question was, at what point do these entities, meaning Scobey, Flaxville, Daniels County, when do they work together?
So yeah, so you have to vote in each of those independent study commissions to collaborate.
So you don't have to work together.
You don't have to work. So you can just be independent. All of you be independent. You might share information in an informal way. But if you want to do something formally, like formal consolidation or something formal, then you need to vote to collaborate amongst the study commissions. And then what you do is say, we're going to give 2 of our study commissioners, you give 2, and we're going to have a mega study commission that's going to represent all the others. And we're going to have this conversation. So you can still do your work as you're in your jurisdiction, and then you can work together about consolidation or merging.
Now, I want to bump back, because this kind of follows all the way through, that one question about if they have elected to do the review and they're looking for study commissioners, do they have to notice that? And what might it look like? The answer is no, you don't have to put any kind of publication out that says we need you to be study commissioners. You can, but when you're talking about looking for study commissioners, about proposing an alternative, anything that has to do with a decision of the people, be very careful that you stay in the education space, not in advocacy. As a representative of a public agency, i.e., the local government or the study commission, you cannot advocate for or against any ballot measure. You can educate, saying if it passes, this happens. If it doesn't, this happens. But you cannot say, vote for this.
And oftentimes in that final report that you'll be pulling together, and it'll have the ballot language in there, and you'll have in that final report this is what we're existing, this is what we're proposing, and pros and cons. You'll go through and list out, we're proposing this change because we think it's going to do this instead of that. And you can go through, and those are great educational tools for people to see. And then there's a broader debate and discussion. And the thing is, a study commission very early on out the gate, you're going to be noticing the meetings, having hearings, but really just saying, hey, if there's an interest, let us know and we can pursue it. We're not making the decision today, but if, like for incorporation, it's kind of complicated, but if you're interested in it, let's explore it and we can have some answers for you. And then you can respond to the answers rather than saying, no, that's scary, we don't want to do it. Don't even think about it. Don't even utter the words. That's not helpful. So I think we need to work with the public to help them go through the process so they don't try to shut you down. It's like, oh no, that charter, that's a scary thing. Let's not even talk about it. No, let's talk about it and let's see if at the end that makes sense or not. But do your due diligence and explore the option. The other thing that's,
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say for municipalities is you can recommend disincorporation. You can say, look, it doesn't make sense for us to continue being incorporated. It's too hard. We can't get anybody to serve. And that's our recommendation. And then they can vote to say, yep, we're done. We'll just become a part of the county. So that is a thing that is an option for municipalities.
And I will say, I saw another one of the questions in there was about the ballot itself. Like, how many options can we give them? And 73151 says you can have the existing form and one alternative form. So you have two options. And then under that alternative form, you could give up to three sub options. So it could be partisan, nonpartisan, ward, at large, those kind of things. The thing is, so voters would vote on all of those sub options, but even if all of the sub options pass, if the overarching form that they're connected to fails, then none of them happen. So the form is the kind of supremacy thing there, and then underneath that they would have the sub options.
So I know we're out of time. There's that language on the study commissions consolidation. It's complicated, but not that we can't do it. And then charters, basically that's what a charter is, what you're defining, what's the powers, executive, legislative. The judicial, basically you say whatever the MCA says because you don't have the authority to modify the judicial branch. Structures of government, what are the specific duties of those different branches? Limitations, right? You can there's, well, I don't want to get deep into that, but that's really what your charter is defining that. And any other departments and things that you might want to define in your charter goes there. Really quick, on our website, you'll see, this is our website, montana.edu extension local gov, Montana voter review, right? So there is a lot of information here, FAQs, but if you want, you can go here to Montana charters and you can see all the copies of we'll just look at Whitefish. So here's Whitefish's charter. So if you want to go and read through Whitefish, the charter for Whitefish, and you can see Whitefish's charter, you can see Billings' charter and say, well, how are they different? And this might be a thing that you can start looking at as a study commission early on, is start comparing charters. If we don't have one, do we want one, and what would it look like? And we're happy to help you kind of steer you towards charters we feel are well written and don't have a lot of friction points that are created from language that is either inarticulate, that creates some ambiguity, that causes tension and friction. We can help you work through some of that. But it's not something to be entered into lightly. It's complicated, but it's certainly doable. And you may have, let me go back here, in your history, your municipality may have already written a charter that just wasn't passed. So we're working on this where we have all the historical documents from the voter reviews from the last long time.
We have
And
most
of them, and we're scanning them in, putting them in there. And so like Beaverhead County is doing the voter reviews. So they have, here's Dillon. So you can see the progress and things that they've done. Lima, all this cool. Where's Madison County?
So some of these are from the last cycle when we scan these in. So if you don't see yours up there, give us a call or shoot us an email and we'll share any of the documentation that we have. We have it scanned. It's just a process to put it on the website. So we're working on it, but if you need it now, we're happy to share it.
We figure we've got till December to worry about it or to get it done. But anyway, but if you're
Another note that was on here was, is the LGC going to post candidate info on your website, like actual candidates and their background and information? No, we provide this kind of universally applicable information and historical information, but we are not the repository for current election information.
And I would imagine the Secretary of State's office might be doing that. I don't know.
They might. I'm going to run through and just rapid fire answer anything that we missed so people can get their questions answered. And then we'll hang out and answer any other questions that come up. Let's see. We talked about residency requirements. Local government staff can be on. JP's question. So we've seen more proposals around changes in plan, those little tweaks, than structure from form. So from commission executive to commission manager. We do expect that there may be more interest in the charter form this time. So we may see more proposals for form changes than plan changes than we have in the past. But only time will tell.
And I will say that counties have been hesitant to make any changes. 4 of the 56 counties still have general governing powers. And so if we would love to, and I'll just say Petroleum County just recently adopted self-governing powers. They're the most recent, this 2 years, last November. They adopted the commission form of government and the self-governing powers in a charter. So I think that might be time for counties to revisit the idea of self-governing powers and charter form of government and maybe look at alternatives to the 3 county commissioners. So just throw that out there. Places like Gallatin County, Madison County, maybe it's time to look at something different.
Yeah. Is there commission approval for the study commission recommendation before it goes to the voters? No, the commission cannot veto it. They don't have to approve it. They are the mechanism by which it can get on the ballot, but they don't have a discretion about whether or not it's appropriate or the voters should be asked. This is an independent study with independent recommendations. Jessica asked, can the city staff, i.e. clerk treasurer, be the administrator for the board? Yes, if the local government is okay with that, because the mayor directs the work of the city staff. So the local government review board does not have supervisory authority over city staff. So that's a conversation between the study commission and the mayor or liaison, whoever that may be. Again, length of service, it could be as short as 6 or 8 months. If you do no proposal, it could be as much as 18 months. The absolute outside kind of timeline is if you were to put a proposal on the ballot in November of 26 and it was adopted, the statutes say that that study commission is to remain impaneled for an additional 90 days. So that would put you into early February of 27. That is the very outside maximum. Other than that, they're likely going to be shorter. Usually it's 30 days after the final report is submitted. Let's see what else we have. We will post all of this on our website. The links will also send the link out to everybody who registered, so you have an easy way to access it. Community forums or community study, are they held at the town hall? Could they be somewhere else? They could be anywhere that is accessible to the public. I would encourage you to consider what is accessible to a broad cross section of the people in your jurisdiction. So for a city or town, that may be City Hall or the library. If you're a county, you may need to have multiple across the county, right? So people have a chance to significantly participate in that process, not have to drive 50 or 60 miles to get to that meeting and back in a single day, that kind of thing.
My guess is people in West Yellowstone have different thoughts about county government than the people who live in Bozeman.
Yeah, yeah.
They're,
Like we said, if you want information, historical information about your jurisdiction, reach out to us. We're happy to share what we have. Study commission can meet as often as it would like. I would encourage you to meet probably at least once a month just to keep momentum. But you can set that timeline for yourself. We did not get to cover in-depth ECOF. It stands for Elected County Official Form. It's a specific structure that looks and acts very much like commission form, but it's the statutory default. There are some special considerations for that. If you are on a county study commission and you want to know more, we are going to cover that in depth at the trainings in December, but we're also happy to have a conversation with you outside of that. And I would talk to your local government about that. There's an overtime question if the city clerk is hired to do some of that as like an added comp. That we aren't HR people and I don't want to give you bad answers. So when we get to that point, we can have a conversation with the people who are giving you good information. Oh, let's see. Slide, yep, all of this will be available. Would it be ethical for the counties or municipalities to provide candidate information on their websites, or is that a no-no? I would make sure that you are cooperating with that local government. If you're sharing information in an educational way, there's probably an appropriate way to do it. Just make sure you're not advocating for or against anything. If you have a bunch of interest and you want to do something like hold a candidate forum, you could talk to your local government about that as well. Just make sure whatever you do, it's applied equally to everyone, it's equally accessible, and you are not perceived as supporting or working against any individual person or ballot measure. Can we fix stuff? Can we fix stuff that was missed in the consolidation of the government? Yes. So that sounds like it's probably an Anaconda, Deer Lodge, or Butte Silverbow question. And because you operate under a charter as a consolidated structure, but a charter form, you can absolutely propose changes to that charter that would make that consolidated government operate more effectively or efficiently. Is there an expectation that in the event of a competitive surplus of candidates, they conduct a campaign subject to all relevant filing and reporting laws? They are candidates just like anybody else. The one difference, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is no filing fee for this. Is that right?
correct, and it's nonpartisan.
And it's nonpartisan, yes. So, but they would still have to follow all of the other campaign laws.
Yeah, so yeah, if you're gonna have a treasurer and all that stuff and really go after it, I would talk with the Commissioner of Political Practices. So go to the Commissioner of Political Practices website, give them a call. They'll help you navigate that whole process. That's really what they do. They're the watchdogs of campaign in Montana.
And the last question I see on here is, are there rules regarding remote attendance at study commission work sessions? I'm not sure if that's for the public or for the study commissioners themselves. Either way, the law does allow for remote attendance. You would still have to be considered a primary resident in that jurisdiction to be eligible. But let's say you're out of town for a month or two or whatever it may be. The law allows for hybrid or electronic participation, both from the body, so the study commissioners, and the public. Your local jurisdiction may have an ordinance that clarifies and or prohibits that. So check with your local jurisdiction about what their rules are on hybrid and electronic participation, but yes, it is possible. Okay, I don't think we missed any, but we will hang out here for a few more minutes. If you have any questions, I'll keep watching the chat. We really, really appreciate your time and your interest. This is an exciting process, and we hope to see great engagement across the state. It's something that is unique to Montana as a requirement, and we are proud that we put that power squarely in the hands of the people, not in the organization or structures that we've created. All right. Thank you all so much. Hope you have a lovely afternoon.